Hello, I'm John Michael Chambers. Welcome back to Special Report with Sheila Holm. This show is published monthly at jmcbroadcasting.com and is distributed across all the major platforms. We are in the heights of a spiritual battle between good and evil. So may the words of God and the wisdom of God pass through Sheila and I in this episode to bring the truth to you as we know it to be. All right, let's make this announcement very important. Derek Johnson is going to be joining me for our premium members on Thursday, March 26th. We just had Michael Jaco yesterday for our premium members. This is 1 hour, one solid hour where we just answer your questions. I act as your host, and in this case, Thursday, March 26th, Derek Johnson will be joining me for one solid hour to answer your questions. You can learn about the premium membership by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. And for those of you that are inclined not to join us in premium, please do subscribe to our free subscription. And of course, 99% of all the content we produce here at JMC Broadcasting is free to the public. All right, Sheila. Sheila is a deep researcher, theologian, and Christian. She's a prolific author of 19 books, including An Eternal Plan and For the Sake of America series. She's also been a public speaker, many events throughout the country. You're looking at an image here at the Reawaken Tour with Clay Clark, General Flynn, and Eric Trump. Her journey and teachings have led her to many different countries on nearly every continent. She has done thousands of interviews and is coveted guest by many of the popular podcasters today. Sheila has become an expert on many topics, including the Georgia Guidestones, and continues to weigh in on the current state of affairs, which we're going to get to in a moment, that are unfolding here in America. Boy, every day is a treasure trove of content for us. So much is happening. Just like President said, winning, winning, winning. The best is yet to come. And that is what's happening in spite of all the chaos, drama, and dangers that are still surrounding this nation and the world. But she has, we're going to listen to Sheila through a spiritual and patriotic and biblical lens. Welcome back to the special report, Sheila Holm.
It's good to be with you.
Good to see you. Boy, is there a lot happening. So let's weigh in on some of these things. And to our audience, second half of the show, we're going to get into the 45 points, the plan to destroy America, as outlined in Sheila's book, and the things we need to do to counter that are happening. So that'll be part two of the show. But let's tap into some of the current events that have taken place this week. We've got to start with the State of the Union address. I'll ask you a 40,000-foot view question and see what you'd like to unpack, because there was so much there. I felt it as though it were a healing. There was a sense of healing taking place for me and perhaps other people in America, because you can clearly see we've got the reins now. And President Trump pistol whipped that side of the room, and deservingly so. I thought it was a brilliant speech. I thought it was just what America needed. And it was delivered up front and center. But what were some of the takeaways? Maybe we have an image to our producer of that was captured which has probably never happened before. Certainly something I've not seen. Let's put that image up at the cabinet, Michael, if you have that image. All right. So Sheila, what's going on here?
That's how the night began. As transparent. We've never had transparency from the president and what he's signing or doing. We've never had transparency from anybody that's has anyone even heard from anybody on the cabinet before? And a lot of people didn't even know who the names of the people were on the cabinet. But now they're actually sending out videos of their topics of prayer. They're actually sending out videos of them praying over the luncheon when the governors were in DC at the White House. Pete Hegseth was doing the prayer. They have Rubio doing the prayer. In that night, there they are outside of the chamber. And before they entered in, they decided to join together as one in unity and pray before they entered that chamber. I have never, ever witnessed anything like this with any part of our government.
Yeah, well, it's certainly nice to see. I'm glad we captured that image to show the folks. So let's go to panel to my producer. What were some of some of the takeaways that you'd like to share with us that you saw at this State of the Union. He covered a lot of subjects, of course, and called out the crazies as he stated they were. I'll just make one quick comment, of course, and this has been uttered everywhere, and rightly so, and I'll be no different. You know, that hero, uh, that tall pilot that led the copter and so forth to in Maduro in Venezuela, who took bullets that I never heard about until the State of the Union. Talk about a hero. And those people on that side of the aisle did not stand for that. Those people on the side of the aisle did not stand for the children that were slain and murdered by illegal aliens that don't belong in our country, and they couldn't even stand up for that. I know that's the National Enquirer version of this, but that is a big statement. Trump set him up. The optics tell everything. What would you like to share with us that you saw at that State of the Union?
Well, they proved who they are because the government's not in session. And the president said last week, he said, well, I don't care if they're in session or not. I don't care if they're thinking they've got a job or not, but I'm going to be there and they
Mhm.
can be there. What they don't understand is there were a lot of empty seats. Nobody's talking about the empty seats. Only one person did I see put out the law, the title in the US law that actually has a number on it that makes them responsible. This is one thing they're not to miss. This is the one time that
Mhm.
they are proving that they're here to represent us. So, okay, let's take that as a basis. They're there to
Mhm.
represent us. And what did the president say? I don't see you guys standing for Americans. I only see
That's
you
right.
standing for illegals. And so what I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask all of you, because that's what the government is for, is to protect the American people, not the illegals. I'm asking you to
Mhm.
stand, and they didn't stand. And then he said, you
Yep.
should be ashamed of yourself. I mean, when an illegal truck driver drives over a little girl with an 18 wheeler, the weight of that and everything, and the dad was able to hold her up. It's unbelievable the people that were there. Remember the two National Guards that were shot by terrorists in
Yeah.
DC?
Mhm.
Those two National
Mhm.
Guard members went to the hospital. I never heard that anybody lived. And there was the man that night who
Mhm.
had
Yeah.
nobody planned on him living. And there he
Yep.
was. And his mom kept saying to President Trump, no, don't, no, 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 no. My son's going to be fine. My son's going to be fine. Remember, he made it so clear. But in the distinction of this, I'm interested in what's going to happen to the people who didn't come and sit in the seat that represent us.
I
I'm
I
interested in what the people
Mhm.
say about their representatives who were kind of sitting off to the side like this and kind of sleeping. And then what did they have on? A pin that was an American flag with a Ukrainian flag. Are you kidding me? And the president is talking about the Ukrainians giving up 25,000 lives every month in a war that they shouldn't even be fighting against themselves. There's nobody trying to destroy Ukraine. And so he mentioned the deeper things that nobody's ever mentioned. He focused on, they've always honored people who've done amazing things in this country. But I'm so grateful that you mentioned about the man for the Maduro flight, because we heard
Mhm.
everybody was fine. They went out there, the plane got shot, but the plane landed safely. So everything's fine. All the equipment's fine. Everything was saved. That's what I heard. And I didn't hear anything
Mhm.
different. But that's the whole thing. We're not honoring the people in America who are going through these things, and the media is not covering any of this. And have you heard the
Correct.
media say anything amazing about the State of the Union summary that he
Of
gave?
course not.
Because it's the longest ever, the most
Mhm.
thorough ever. When he
Yes.
was with us, I was invited to the steel plant the week before, and it was all last
Mhm.
minute. And when I went, I started noticing what he's revealing to us. And he revealed more, and yet the summary that the social media people have been sharing from the White House are some of the details he shared in Rome, Georgia the week before. And what it is he is actually taking us back to the beginning of this country. When he told
Mhm.
us a couple months ago, we have less crime right now than 100 years ago. I said, wow. By the time I saw him in Rome, Georgia, it was then 125 years ago. So, and
Mhm.
that's what President Jefferson told us. He said, you cannot remove an evil and just replace it. You can't, that is no way to, once it's corrupted, it's corrupted. You cannot It all has to be start over, restructure the whole thing back the way it needs to be. Why? Because a republic is of, by, and for we the people. And this thing is so corrupted, so out of
Yeah.
whack. And he's been sharing all of this. And what he did when he got inaugurated the first time, he gave us the power back. What he did in this State of the Union confirmed that I'm cleaning everything up so you can take the power back. Because we haven't been able to change
Mhm.
things locally because they still control everything. But I think
Yes.
there's a lot more freedom that people are feeling. I've seen a major shift, and I've heard a lot more people out there talking and not just staying at home and talking. They're out there talking about all of this and understanding we can make a difference now. We actually have an
Mhm.
ability to have some power back and correct the things in our communities that need to be corrected. We know now that our states have to have school choice. All these executive orders he's signing, he's opening the doors to everything and nobody's walking through it. So now he's starting to give us examples of how these people are doing this. It was, to me,
Mhm.
it was the most amazing State of the Union I've ever heard. And when he was in Rome, Georgia, he stated a lot of these things specifically, and everyone was in shock, just in shock that
Mhm.
things have improved so much because they're not hearing it in their homes. They're not, a lot of these people aren't on social media, so they're only still hearing the mainstream media. So when they don't hear it,
Yeah.
this State of the Union, let them hear it, beginning to
Yes,
end. This is
exactly.
who we are. We're Americans. We're proud we are. We're going to stand together. I was amazed. I was just, I'm so grateful. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have Trump leading the way.
Absolutely. You know, another observable point, to your point about the media not covering State of the Union and certainly not covering properly. Same thing with the Epstein. Now, I don't watch mainstream media, but I'll go out on a limb and say they're not covering that either. And if they are, it's
Mhm.
bare. It's just the front page that says Epstein files. I mean, and that's arguably the the biggest story ever. I mean, you
Mhm.
know, if you among the biggest stories ever when you look at the people and the amount of
Mhm.
people and the seats these people held in life, whether it's royalty or presidents or congressmen and women. And the pedophiles, of course, aren't just men, they're women too. And I ran a list out on another show. I mean, this is such a big story. And the media doesn't cover it either. I have a forecast and I think we see it happening with all the lawsuits Trump has filed against the media and the ones he's won already, and the fact that the media has been just absolutely crumbling slowly but surely since the escalator to right now. I say, and I read something. I'm not prepared in this show to present any facts, but I'll drop it out there. I read something just the other day that I don't know if it was CBS or but one of the big ones that is merging or perhaps being bought out. And it feeds into what I think is going to happen. The top tier of media, you know, ABC, CBS, NBC, you know, and then of course cable, you know, CNN, Fox, and all that. That whole top tier of information. First off, no one's listening to them anymore, but they're still there, but they're crumbling. And you know, I don't know. Fast forward a year, 3 years, pick a number. Who knows? I could be wrong. That tier is going to be transformed. It's going to go away as we know it, for sure. Some will just be gone. Some will be merging, which is why I mentioned what the news feed I picked up the other day. That's going to get cleansed because we're going to be living in a world of truth. And that game is over. And so are their sponsors once RFK Jr. takes care of business and doesn't allow the big pharma to run their ads anymore. So you've got that. Then you're going to have a second tier of news delivery, which today, in my opinion, would equate to AON or Newsmax or something. You've got that, and that needs a little cleansing and work. But you're going to have the second tier of news, and then you'll have the third tier, which is kind of where I sit, and I'm not really in the news business at all. I'm military intelligence and economic focused with experts like yourself and other experts we bring on. But the point I'm making is that tier of the alternative news, the podcaster world, that'll be flushed out, cleansed out, and there'll be some value there in the commentating and so forth. And last thing I say on this, and this was not part of our dialogue today, but you've inspired it in me, and I'd like to get your feedback on it. Is Gitmo? We all know that Matt Meck has reported, Juan's chief of staff, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, who presided over some tribunals back in the 9/11 crew, and was there in '04, I think, helping uh, construct the beginning of what's now reported by Matt, a gymnasium, a university gymnasium size room. That's the media center. So you're going to have news coming straight from the horse's mouth out of Gitmo. And that's coming soon, in my opinion. That's coming this year. And then you have the what I've defined there. That's very valuable and very. And then you throw AI in the mix, which is a whole different conversation. But information is everything, and I think we're in the process of transforming what's being said, who's saying it, and who's swinging the weight of audience. I mean, on my little broadcast, JMC Broadcasting, we have over 10 million collective views last month just from 9 shows that we published. People are watching people like us and many others like me, and they're turning off the fake news because they're not getting the news. And I think it's a wonderful thing. Any comment about news since Brad brought us into that?
Well, everything is changing. People are pulling away from. A lot of people haven't even turned on their TV for months, just because
Mhm.
there's nothing there. And
That's right.
more people are finding out how truthful the president is, and he's not making any promises and then not bringing them to pass. He's when he
Mhm.
states something, that's exactly where he's headed. That's exactly what he's going to do, and then he does it. We've never had this in America, and I think it's shocking everyone. It's shocking everyone.
Yeah.
But to find out all of these people that have to go and all these major deportations that are happening, and he goes, "We're gonna do millions more." It has to be cleaned up. And at the same
Yes.
time, we have to clean up things in the process. There are two things happening about the immigration process that are disturbing. When I went to that signing, swearing
Mhm.
in West Palm in Florida, they were telling us that they had floor to ceiling undocumented files that they had to work through to see about them getting the green cards and starting the process. It's like, why are you keeping undocumented people files instead of these people leaving our country? Then the other
Right.
thing I just found out this week, and this is from the military guys who have wives from other countries, and they're going to follow and cross every T and dot every I. But they heard a crazy story. And it said if you have a green card in America, you can go to the post office, fill out the application for a passport, an American passport, turn in your green card, and get an American passport, which does what? Give you ID to vote. I couldn't believe this, and he
Yeah.
couldn't either.
Yeah.
He thought maybe it's just a small little, post office, and they knew the people and thought they
Mhm.
would just help him. But this is going through our, even though the post office is not a government entity, it is a corporation. The immigration should not be allowing this. And so he went to his local post office and asked, and they said, yeah, bring your wife in with her green card. You just have to fill out the passport and get the photos for the passport, and we'll turn in the green card, and she'll get an American passport. So that means our immigration process is not even a legal process. You cannot
Mhm.
do that without becoming a citizen of the United States. How can you get a United States passport? So we
Yeah.
have issues and nobody's talking about this. I've tried to get
Yeah.
information out on this, so I thank you. I'm so honored, John, that we're doing these because we can get the information out to the people so they can see what is going on and how
Mhm.
can they get involved and start helping clean this up.
You bet. I'll bet you they also gave them some free donuts along with their passport and a pathway to voting. Let's talk about
There you
the
go.
Save America Act. Let's jump into that. It's a
Mhm,
good segue because it's got we're waiting for it to get through the Senate, as I understand, and the odds of that happening are slim to zero, in my humble opinion. Um, but the president has published on X and perhaps Truth Social his position on that. He's always a step ahead, just like he was in the tariffs.
mhm,
So jump there for 1 second. The SCOTUS. I'm sure President Trump, his legal team of constitutional expert lawyers, the white hats, the military, they did all the homework already, knowing darn well we may end up with what we got, and we did.
mhm,
And the next day, they deployed the strategy, and it was
mhm,
so stereotypically Trump. What did let Trump be Trump? You bet. What did President
Mhm.
Trump do in his team? The next day, he counterpunched and doubled down with the 10%
Mhm.
tariffs across the board, cited the laws and codes, how it's legal and constitutional, set the case precedent. And he brought that up at the State of the Union for the world to hear and
Mhm.
see, to put that to bed real quick.
Mhm.
So fake news can have a field day with more propaganda and lies. I mean, it's a good time to be an American, folks. I'll tell you, it's always a good time to be American, but you know what I'm talking about. You're walking around as American the last 4 years under that fake auto Biden presidency, especially when you're overseas like I am, meeting people from foreign countries. They're looking at us like we're the Antichrist. No, actually, we're getting the Antichrist out of America. And that's what Trump is doing. And he called it out. But the Save America Act, what would you like to say about that? Because we
Let's
know it's
wait a
not going
moment
to, yeah.
on those tariffs because he brought he brought this up in Rome, Georgia, because that's exactly the day it was happening. He said, Supreme Court's looking at this, and they're probably because it came up from Herschel Walker, and he said, "My favorite word is tariff," and Herschel Walker was laughing, and he had him come up on stage. Yep, my favorite word is tariff, but the Supreme Court is probably going to turn it all down. The whole place stood up and booed. The whole place was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
booing was
Wow.
everywhere. Everybody was booing that whole thing.
Yeah.
He goes, guys, don't worry. If the Supreme Court wants to do that, we've got something else we could do. Or he was talking about it. So now here's the funny part. Look what else we found out. Where's Gorsuch? Did you notice that? It's only Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh, and everybody, Alito and Thomas, were acknowledging how brilliant the opinion was of Kavanaugh. Those are the guys standing with us. Where's
Hmm.
Gorsuch? We already heard rumors about Amy Coney Barrett. I don't expect her
Oh,
to
yeah.
be here for us.
No.
But Gorsuch was supposed to be this guy for us. But when it comes to the money, guys, when you're interfering with the money, this was another test of the Supreme Court to prove to people who is with the Americans and who's not. And
Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to bring that up because to me that was so key. Gorsuch is missing too. We've got 3 out of our Supreme Court that are with us.
Yeah, when you just shared that story where you were there, where everybody got up and booed when the president confidently said, "Hey, don't worry about it. We got a plan B. We'll take care of business." You know what, folks? You've heard all the sayings. A lot of people within our movement say, "Oh, stop saying trust the plan. Stop saying nothing can stop what's coming. Stop saying the best is yet to come." No, keep saying that. Nothing can stop what's coming. Every barrier they throw in, we've got it covered legally and constitutionally. And that brings me to a quick question before we get into some other matter here. When we're talking about the Supreme Court, uh, right now, the justice or lack thereof, the judicial branch of our government and all of the courts and all of this stuff on the civilian side is being exposed. We're in the exposure phase
Mhm.
of how corrupt that is, and a lot of folks are saying, "Where's the arrest with Epstein? Where's the arrest with Epstein?" Well, my comeback is you're not going to see it very many arrests with Epstein because it's not going to be done on the civilian side. Instead, if you're going to arrest anyone, we'll be arresting some of the judicial, and we're going to be taking care of the processing over there in Gitmo and in the JAGs. There's 600 JAGs out there now, has been reported. I mean, we're taking care of business in this military
Mhm.
operation. And I have a question for you. The Supreme Court, correct me if I'm wrong, but like any other attorney, they're members of what? The Bar Association,
Mhm.
which is what? England, which is also in part of 1871, the U.S. Corp that's been being dissolved out. So, so here you've got these half a dozen Supreme Court justices that are turncoats, not just on this issue, on many issues. Uh, could we see? I know this is a big statement, but no stone's going to be left unturned, in my opinion, over these years. And you're talking about the highest court of the land. I think it's going to be a big shakeup there because if they're part of the bar, and we're getting rid of that, and you've got treasonous acts being committed there. In fact, one of the justices has been to Epstein Island how many times? Okay, so I think at some point in this clean out, sweep out operation, we're going to be cleaning out the Supreme Court. Do you have any views or comments about that? Am I off the mark on saying they're part of the bar and that's going away? I mean, help me out here.
It goes deeper than that.
Okay.
From the original Supreme Court, from the original Congress, both House and Senate, and that's why they agreed to get rid of that brand new Republican and the brand new Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln. is that they
Mhm.
were all high nobles and the Knights of Pythias. And it's on the memorial pages. And if they changed it again, but they changed it from Knights of Pythias, which I had in my book reference sections in books 4 and 5, then they changed it to
Mhm.
KOP. So if you don't get it with Knights of Pythias, look at KOP on the memorial pages. It's all of the Supreme Court. It's all of Congress, House and Senate. It's your judges. And that's why they can't take an oath to us. And that's point 13 in the 45 points. Avoid all loyalty oaths. That's why Congress and Senate aren't taking oaths. That's why the judges aren't taking oaths. This has been going on for a long time. It's entertainers. They were the guys that had the castles on our land that they granted to themselves. They've been using our money and doing all of this the whole time since before we were even formed as a nation. We'll go into this deeper as we keep going through the 45 points in these reports.
Mhm.
But we didn't understand. I mean, even Louis Armstrong is named in the high nobles. I mean, who would have guessed? So
Wow.
the entertainers, the business people, the corporation heads, and that's where you're going to find a combination of these layers, because to reveal to you who the Epstein guys are, they're the same behind the scenes guys that are running the show on everything, because that's what it
Mhm.
was all about, is blackmailing and getting all those people controlled. Why? You have to control the operation. We've been under
Mhm.
a completely captured operation from the very
Absolutely.
beginning of thinking we were in freedom and liberty, and we never had it. That's what the Pilgrims' desire was on the Faith Monument. We've never been free. We've never been independent, and they came in and controlled us. And that's why the Monroe Doctrine of 1820, and I don't know if I've told you guys this, and maybe you've heard this elsewhere, John, but President Trump has now taken on the term. It's the Donroe Doctrine.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that's what
Yeah.
he's
Well,
doing. He's cleaning
fun
it
with
up.
words. Yeah. You bet. Let's talk about Dan Scavino. Dan Scavino, as I understand, has been working the president's side for a couple of decades, maybe longer, and has moved up the
35
ladder in
years.
terms of, yeah, 35 years. And he's one of the key people in there. And I just, his communication link to us, of course, are his fabulous posts. He's
Mhm.
always signaling us either directly or indirectly. And sometimes he's having a lot of fun with it. Well, before I talk about uh, one post he did, I want to mention this. He also posted something I saw it last night. So it was just published yesterday, actually. And he stated something like, it's time to abolish the IRS. And of course, that's fresh off the heels of the president at the State of the Union. I'm paraphrasing the president. I don't have any quotes prepared, but the president said something like, there's no need for the federal income tax. That's gonna go away. The American people have financial hardships that have been unnecessarily burdened, and I'm gonna help the people I love. That's a fascinating statement. And then Scavino publishes, "Let's get rid of the IRS." Folks, it's coming soon, in my opinion. But Scavino also published something else. To our producer, do we have an image? And it's a real, it's an image of strength, peace through strength. Let's take a look at this post of Dan Scavino as we look for it. But there we go. It's a good visual. I mean, that's some power right there. What do you know about these bombers, Sheila, as of used recently? And what do you think this image is signaling to us with all we have going on, say, in Iran, in Mexico, in Cuba? There's some hot spots in the world. And what do you make of this image from Dan Scavino?
Well, these are the B-2 bombers. Remember what used to be the B-52s? This is the B-2
Hmm.
bombers. They're beautiful. They're brilliant. These bombers went into Iran when they did the nuclear strike in all of the locations, and these guys stayed in the air for 36 hours, not touching ground. They left America, flew over, handled the mission, and flew back. And these wheels never touched the ground the whole time until they got back
Wow.
home. These are brilliant pieces of equipment. I don't know another way to describe them, and they're so beautiful in the air. And when you see the president flying in Air Force One, you'll see some fighter jets, but you'll see one of these on either side sometimes. And Dan keeps us up to date on those photos. But when I retweeted this, the reason I did this is today, yesterday. Dan Scavino sent out a 5-second video, and it's the startup of the engine. And we just had Daytona, right? Daytona 500, when the president got to say, "Gentlemen, start your engines," a couple of years ago. And so he had a 5 second of the roar of the engine of a B2. Okay, then
Nice.
today he comes out and it's just a scrolling, and which we don't have to do. Is this picture? It's within 10 seconds, he's scrolling past 8 of these positioned just exactly, and they're right on the runway ready to go. And so it's indicating something, and there's a lot of chatter that what's going to happen is that everything happens on a weekend. Maduro was on a Sunday night. He was on the skiff
Yeah,
Sunday
true.
night. He was back on Air Force One and on his way to DC the next morning. And that's when he said, George W. and people, I'm just telling you again, it's not George H.W., it's George W., 43 president. He said, did you know he caused 22 insurrections? And you guys are asking me, what am I going to do in insurrection? And what is it I'm going to? He doesn't have to do that. He's a commander in chief, and he's putting people in position to handle things. Why? To protect you and me.
Yes.
Nobody has ever been in that position and done this for us. And there's a little video. I don't know if it's available. There's a little video of the president explaining the difference of
Yeah.
how he's operating than how we operated before.
To our producer, if we have that video available, let's run it now.
I say it to people. We have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with the enemy from within, and it drives them crazy when I use that term. But we have an enemy from within. We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful.
It's just this amorphous group of people, but they're smart and they're vicious, and we have to defeat them. And when I say the enemy from within, the other side goes crazy, becomes a sound. Oh, how can he say? They've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. But this is who we're fighting. Core pillar of our new strategy is a shift from a time-based approach to one based on conditions. I've said it many times, how counterproductive it is for the United States to announce in advance the dates we intend to begin or end military options. We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities. Conditions on the ground, not arbitrary timetables, will guide our strategy from now on. America's enemies must never know our plans or believe they can wait us out. I will not say when we are going to attack, but attack we will.
Where we are.
We can cut it here. Thank you.
That little ending, we
that-
need to see that little ending because it's brilliant what he
okay.
says, Michael.
Just so you understand.
Keep up.
Just so you understand, I never mentioned the word or the name Israel. Never mentioned it in that conversation. They were all saying I did. So you had another story wrong. Never mentioned the word Israel.
See, fake
Okay, I'm going to
news.
start with that. Tell me
Yep.
what the significance of that statement of the president is, because why is he
Because
saying
they're
that?
always
What's happening
making
there?
they're always making a conversation about now he's negotiating Israel. Now he's negotiating Israel. He's in control of Israel. He's telling Israel what to do. He's having Bibi over to tell him what to do. And when he came back from England in September, it was days before he summoned all of the generals to Quantico. And he said, for the first time ever, he said these words. He said, I'm meeting with Bibi Netanyahu regarding the state of Israel. Now, what is the state of Israel? It's the corporation, just like we're a corporation in England.
Mhm.
Israel was made up by the Balfour Declaration by the Rothschilds, Jacob Rothschild, I think it was. And when they did that in 1948, it's been registered in London, England, and every February they have to renew the registration of the State of Israel, Inc. And no one's ever talked about that. And he never mentioned it or mentioned it until that time, because people are still confusing what is the real Israel. Jacob became Israel in 1906 BC, 2,000 years before Christ. 1906 BC. Moses wasn't even here until 1400s. So in 1906, he had this whole family. And by 721, Assyrian king Shalmaneser, I think his name was. It's I'm not good at pronouncing those names, but he was the king of Assyria at the time. Took him captive. By 712 BC, Jonah went in. They repented. God relented, and the king was still allowed to be the king instead of being overthrown by the Lord. We don't understand how before Christ and before the Holy Spirit, God took these people out. God handled all of this, and only his few prophets gave warnings to people like a Jonah or a Nahum. And that's why the 10 tribes of the north are, nobody knows where they are to this day. They're the lost tribes. Why? Because Father said to the king, you'll never know where they are. Because when Nahum went in 612 BC, God was done. He'd already removed the tribes of Israel. So they're not even over in that part of the world. God lifted up the water. They walked for a year and a half. All of this is in the Apocrypha that was in the 1611 King James Bible until a British and Foreign Bible Society, no name of any member, took it all out in 1800, starting in 1804. They started changing things. And isn't it interesting? In 1804, they started moving the Native Americans on the other side of the Mississippi, so they wouldn't have any way to communicate with any. See what I mean? You move the
Yeah.
truth away from the people so nobody knows the truth. And so
Unbelievable.
this is, we have a lot we have to learn. It's just, there's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to pedal back to the beginning of the clip of the president. Actually, let me
Mhm.
go with the closing. Save Israel for last. We saw that little snippet of words on the screen before Netanyahu and Trump spoke, or Trump spoke. And that, of course, comes from a Q post. So, folks, I believe last is coming soon. And thank goodness for
Mhm.
that. And thank you for that education on the state of Israel. I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened in 1948. That's kind of about the same time the CIA was formed, as I understand, and the League of Nations and a whole lot of other folks setting the stage for the 60 years of a nightmare that we've all just been through that is now being exposed and dismantled. That brings me to
Mhm.
the elections. We have primaries; they're important. We have the midterms coming up, of course, general election down the line, but the focus being mainly on the midterms right now. Um, Save America Act is not going to pass, in my opinion, but just the way the president countered the tariffs moves lickety split. He's going to do the same thing. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just take a look at the president's public posts on this. I'm sure you've been following that, Sheila, and our good friend Juano Savin on to our viewers. Eyes on Gitmo is a monthly military and intelligence panel I produce and host with Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mack, our good friend Juano Savin, and we have a revolving, I call it the fifth Beatle, but a revolving fourth seat with different military experts that come in. And it's a show you should watch, especially the one we just published a few days ago, because towards the end, uninterrupted, Juan had some healthy time to walk us through what he believes is going to save the midterm elections and thus the republic. Would you care to comment on the Save America Act? Do you think it's going to pass the Senate? And if it doesn't, what do you think is up the president's sleeve?
Well, there's a national emergency that I think Juan has also been talking about. The Save America Act, Elon Musk was told on social media today that there isn't going to be another party. There's only going to be the Republican Party, that the Democratic Party is now out of the minds of the true legal Americans. And so we don't have a
Mhm.
democracy anymore. And so I wrote back to him and I said a democracy was a majority mob rule, which is how they changed it. We were put
Yeah.
together as a republic for America, by, for, and of the people in America, the legal people in America.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that is what our flag stands for. In fact, it's in the pledge to the republic for which our flag
Yes.
stands. And that's what was
Yes.
so funny during, I think it was the first impeachment. Nancy Pelosi comes out with this big banner of that part of our pledge to our republic. At the same time, she's trying to eliminate by impeaching our president, and knowing the Russian hoax was built up by the Democratic Party in Georgia Tech, Atlanta, Georgia, wasn't even real. And so they already knew,
Mhm.
and yet that's how far they will go in order to control. Again, we've been a captured operation from the beginning, and the people involved are the people who are willing to keep us there.
Absolutely. I'm going to segue us into your body of work on the 45 points, but sort of ask this question first. So we'll close out this first half of our broadcast of current events and talk about the subject matter of religion, let's say, and the disruptions in the world today. What are your comments about, as I understand, the 700 plus books of the Bible that were rescued or taken out from the underground cities and tunnels of the Vatican? That's a lot of information that's been withheld from all of us. Do you have any viewpoints or anything you'd like to share about that? And will that data see the light of day?
We do have access to some of the key points. For example, the ancient book of Enoch. The ancient book of Enoch is where Covfefe was expressed, because the fallen angels were so mean and so horrible that Noah's sons yelled out Covfefe to them. And Covfefe just means we will rise, because we're with the Lord, the truth overall, truth and life, and you will fall. And so it was very clear what that was. Nobody knows currently what it is. Here's how brilliant Hebrew is. Covfefe is also three elements, chemical elements, CO, and then V, and then Fe, and I know that's iron. I'm not a chemistry major. And so those three elements, double of iron, is what our military put on the cell towers in order to protect us, because when they ramp up the 5G in China, the people were dying in the street. So do you see
Yes.
how they didn't want us to know the truth of these things. And so that's why they removed specific things. So there's the ancient books of Enoch, the Apocrypha. It's Edgar, I think it's Goodspeed. You guys have heard me talk about these before, and they're very, very good summaries. I can pull them from my bookshelf because the ancient book of Enoch, I believe, is Ken Johnson. I'm taking this from memory. It's kind of a golden cover. It looks like you're walking into a palace, I believe. And he's brilliant in how he describes it, and he matches it up with the rulerships, which is miraculous. If you match up everything happening from ancient times to current in Israel, there have been the same
Hmm.
number of leaders as the ones in the other parts of the world. And all of this is coming to a culmination under President Trump. And it's a challenge with Bibi Netanyahu, because Hamas and Hezbollah were created by that. So that's why they don't want you to have the books of the Bible. And they didn't want anyone knowing the truth, which is why they had to move the Native American Indians, who were still leaving the stones of remembrance. They were still etching ancient Paleo Hebrew, the 10 Commandments, and praise be unto Yah. That's hallelujah. We didn't know that that's part of Father's name, Yahweh. Things that we
Wow.
still don't know to this day. All of this they were sharing, and they and the pilgrims were so tight, because the pilgrims just got the Bible in English, and they wanted to get out of there before the next pandemic in 1620. There's so much wisdom we didn't know. 1535, they just got the Bible. Then in 1582, the Gregorian calendar, which was honoring Pope Gregory. I never knew until I did the personal letter of the new book. Every name of a month, every day of the week is their dead gods. So we're naming two gods every time we say we want to meet somebody on this month, on this day of the week. We're naming two gods that we're never supposed to have other gods before us. Do you see what I mean? And the pilgrims knew,
Yeah.
and the grooming of the children, they knew. So when the president's making this call, and he's calling us to prayer, and he's calling us to unite together as believers, and he's calling it on
Hmm.
May 17. Now, Juan has already explained this much better than I can. It's exactly 49 days before the 3rd of July, making the 50th, the 4th of July, and the start of the golden age on the 51st, which is the day after July 5th. So there is a
Wow.
plan in getting to
Oh yeah.
that to be excited about. And then he used the word
You bet.
religion, and people said, well, the president isn't perfect. He doesn't know what you know. I don't care if he knows what I know. Okay. Our president is saying, because the only undefiled religion in scripture is to see to those who are in need, the fatherless. That means the widows, the orphans, and that means in modern
Mhm.
day single mothers and their children with orphans' hearts because of father lineage. So what John is mentioning about religion and what the president's mentioning about religion is we've forgotten who we are and we've forgotten who we
Mhm.
serve. And that way we don't know whose we are because we're so mixed up in this whole structure. And that's why what the president is doing is not just calling us to prayer, he's rededicating our nation to the Lord over all. He is truth. That's why in the 45 points, discredit the Bible, discredit God, discredit the founding fathers.
Mhm.
Anybody who's operating in truth, get rid of them. And that's been the process the whole time. So religion causes people to go nuts, causes them to go a little bit crazy because it's not about Gentile pagan worship, which is what the pilgrims got away from. And when they came to America,
Mhm.
they banned the church for 500 years. And I think this is what you're leading into, John, is that if we come back to this, and I think we're going to get to this tonight and what we're going to discuss about the 45 Points book, because
Mhm.
we need to come back to the truth and operate with the Lord over all, because everything we're doing is not Christianity, because Christ didn't do any of this. It was created by Constantine 250 years after Christ died on the cross for us.
Wow. A
And we're doing
flood
it,
of
and it's
hidden
not
a flood of
linked.
hidden truths. A flood of hidden truths. Sometimes they drip, sometimes they flood, and that's where we are right now. And you mentioned something that I just want to segue into the 45-point plan. But
Mhm.
you talked about July 5th. Look, folks, we're at the dawning of the golden age, and the president
Mhm.
opened up the State of the Union with the golden age statement, and he bookended it and closed it with the golden age statement. And this is a glorious time. I can't wait. And we got a lot to get through, but let to my producer put up image book one, please. If you can locate book one, countering the 45-point plan to destroy America from within. This body of work, in part, reveals the structure required for current generations to secure and retain liberty and freedom and not allow enemies, both foreign and domestic, to destroy America for future generations. As the president so aptly said, enemies within. So it's domestic enemies as well as foreign, and boy, we've been hit by them all. So let's begin discussing this. Take us through. Explain briefly the premise of this work, and begin at point 45. And maybe we can tackle one or two points in this broadcast before we conclude. And to our audience, this is going to be our format. You're going to want to come back each and every show, every month, special report with Sheila Holm, where Sheila comments on the events of the day as we've just done. And it's not drive-by news. It's not the Inquirer version of what's going on. It's the real meat and potatoes, to use a simple term, from the brilliance of Sheila Holm and her research and her deep understanding of history as if things relate to today. And so let's get into the 45 point. Set this up for us, Sheila. The airwaves are yours.
Well, it's an interesting process. It's the 45 points that were read into our congressional record. That's right. January 10, 1963, and then they renewed them 60 years later, which was in 2023. That is 3 20s to them, and 20 means recycle unto death, which is why there's a pandemic in every century in the 20 year. And the pilgrims knew that, so they had to get to America by 1620. So there's so much truth that they knew, that the Civil War soldiers knew. We've been talking about this in our previous interviews together, but this 45 points is so thorough. It's the most emotional work I've done. It's the deepest work I've done. And because they have rewritten history, I've had to depend upon the Father to get the truth about the history. And in getting the truth about the history, I've been able to find things and reveal things to our president that they had no way to find. And we're going to tackle one of those tonight just to take us into it. And the humor is, I had the book all established because I'm very organized, and I had everything 1 through 45, and I had everything ready to go and everything all set. And just very quietly, Father said, "You have to flip it." And I go, "Flip what?" He goes, "Like, flip the book." I said, "No, no, no. I've got the points 1 through 45. It's the 45 points." He said, "If you don't reveal it to my people backwards, they're not going to be able to read it forwards." I was like, "Oh, what does that mean? He goes, you have to flip the book. So I called our friend and I said, you're not going to believe what God just told me. I can't write this 1 through 45. I have to flip the whole book. And because I'm researching it backwards, he thought I would just know to write it backwards. And our friend just said, well, of course you have to, because if you don't do that, they won't be able to read it. I said, what do you mean? And he said, because everything they've done to us is backwards. So God's telling you how to do it so that people can understand it at a deeper level. And it didn't hit me. And then when I flipped it and started adding his little gems to it to finish it, then I started realizing if we'd start at the beginning and we would realize the slippery slope we've been on the whole time we've been a country,
Hmm.
we
Yep.
really probably wouldn't want to read anymore. But you had to know
Yeah.
where we're going to and what the plan was. So, what is point 45? Point 45
Hmm.
is take the nation and all individuals into the world courts. This is the difference between a human mind and a believing mind, because a believing mind and a 5D comprehension in a believing mind, 5D is Hebrew, because Hebrew is this way. And if you have a chance, go to the interviews page on the website, go all the way to the bottom. I put it in there because so many people ask for it. And so just go there and it's 4 minutes, 30 seconds. It'll explain Hebrew. The letter is 1, the number is 2, the pictograph is 3. So when Father put his signature on our country in those 3 eclipses, Aleph, when he did that, he was letting us know, my hand is upon you. I'm giving you the Nineveh lesson. Is what's happened to you that I just described with Jonah and Nahum. And so when Father did that, what he was revealing unto us is how short the time is. We have to focus and unite together to turn this around. And what the enemy didn't understand when they did the 45 points, the word nation means people. So they wanted to take the nation of America and all of its individuals, they didn't even say people, and all of its individuals into the world courts. And the humor is God said you have to review and research 45 and 44 together. And without thinking, I go into Sheila mode and I said, you know what, God, The Hague is over here, and that's where the world courts are. And so The Hague is over here, and Panama's way down over here, God. And so God was just kind of laughing, and he said, well, you can say that they're in different areas and they're separate, but all the research is already combined for you. Will you please research them together? I'm like, how could they put it all together? And guys, every legal review of points 44 and 45 were combined, because the legal review of Kentucky, the legal review of Tennessee, all these legal reviews that were done on these points, that's merged together. Because what did they have to do? They had to, point 44, internationalize the Panama Canal. Why? Because we own it, we control it, our people are there. That Panama Canal land zone is over 4,000 acres. That's us. And so they couldn't have us down there involved over there. They had to limit us to all being in America. And the whole thing they did about the Panama Canal is a deep rooted lie that took me many, many months to find all of the layers of the truth to reveal the whole thing. So, to start with, I can show you the map because that's what God gave me. He said they're saying it doesn't belong to America, but here's the map cover. I don't have the map, but I had the map cover. And I don't know if we can bring that up.
Yeah, to our producer, we have a few images that will support this. There we
Oh,
go.
this is beautiful. Okay, do you guys see the scale of 4,000? We have over 4,000 acres. It's Chief Engineering Report. And do you see who it belongs to? The United States of America. Okay, this
Hmm.
is how brilliant our president is. When I revealed this to them and they found that that we had it, because the treaties are gone. Can't find the treaties anywhere. 2 treaties, 2 different treaties, and everybody said they were 20 years apart. That's not true. They were all done at the same time. So the 2 treaties are supposed to explain all of this. And so what happened is, with the treaties not there, nobody's been able to figure anything out about this and find anything about this. So I got all excited, and my first initial research was revealing all of the facts I could give that God gave me. And I said, with God giving me this, so all being true, what I'm telling you is all true. If this is all true, then who's got the control of the canal if it's not us? So God had me speaking with our friend Juan in Chicago, and the very next weekend I was in Vegas at Reawaken. And I'm driving quickly in 2.5 days to get to reawaken. And God started telling me that just adding scripture to these 45 points isn't going to help. And I said, well, I'm not even getting an answer on the first question. And he said, you will soon. That's all he said. You will soon. And then he started talking to me about you can't just give people scripture. You've got to give them a training manual. You've got to tell them how this all happened. You've got to tell them what these people did. Because if you don't explain what happened, then they're not going to understand how to never let the slippery slope start again. And I go, how am I going to do that? Because the books in 10 years, I'd already written a dozen books. And those dozen books are, and by 12 years, because this was 12 years in, now it's 18 books. And the books, the information is changing. The truth you're telling me changes some of the things from before because you told me as fast as I could take it on. And it's so much that's been lies. So he said, this is what you have to do. You have to explain in very simple terms exactly what's going on, and I'm going to give you the truth. So when you give it to them, you're going to get it as deep as I can give it to you. And he has given me answers to every single thing I've asked. So then I get to reawaken, and I'm a day early for the dinner for the Andrew magazine that was just launching, and they moved the night to the next night. I said, what do you want me to do? It was August 23rd of 2023, and you will find the transcript inside the book, chapter on point 44, Panama Canal. God said, we're going to watch TV. We never do this. I said, so what do you want me to do? And he said, I'm at the Trump for Reawaken. I don't know how to find a TV channel here. He told me. And Tucker had pre-recorded it, but why was it on that exact night? That was the night of the presidential Republican debate. And President Trump said he wasn't going to be there. So it was released that very night. And so I'm sitting there and I'm hearing all this information in the very middle of the 45-minute interview from points like minutes 22 to 25, 26. President Trump's quoting all the research I gave the team. He quoted all of the facts beginning all the way through. He went through the list as though he was looking exactly at the list, but he wasn't looking at anything. And it's like he's talking right at me because he's not looking at Tucker. They have the camera. He's talking right to me, telling me with all of this being true, you're probably wondering, who's got control of that canal? At the very end of the 5 minutes where he's talking about my research, he's asking the question I wanted the answer to. And he said, well, it's China that has the control of that canal, if you can believe it. But he said, you're not going to have to worry about that because you know Xi and I are good friends. I'm just going to make a phone call. Xi's going to give me back the control. Everything will be fine. Guys, that's the encouragement I needed to keep giving my research to the team and let them give it to President Trump. Everything started moving so fast. I was so encouraged by that point. But again, we're back in August of 23. And if you're wondering why did this book not come out till 25, President Trump didn't get back in as in the election till 24. And after he got back in, he didn't get his cabinet members right away. Okay. So even though I knew I had this map covered and I knew that we owned it and I couldn't find the treaties and I didn't know what I was going to do, and he's a real estate mogul. And I'm like, he's going to tell me what happened with the real estate transaction because an international real estate transaction can't just disappear. Well, there never was one. And so then it goes months of me researching through this whole thing. I get in to 24 and I said, God, I don't know what to do. And I was in tears and I'll never forget. It was a Sunday afternoon. I'm sitting at the computer and just very softly, I got an answer. Because I said, there's no way to finish this book. I can't finish this book because if I don't know what happened in the Panama Canal. And nothing was coming back from the president. God said very silently, quietly, U.S. State Department statement, Second Panama Canal Treaty. As soon as he said that, I typed it in and I got the statement from the U.S. State Department. And what it said was, per the Second Panama Canal Treaty, the Panama Canal land zone. Now, remember the land, I've not been there, but the land zone is the whole land piece that we purchased, the 4,000 plus acres that we built the canal in between. And at that point, I still knew we lost 35,000 lives. President Trump had to tell me he found they lost more than 38,000 lives. We didn't know about the other 3,000. So he kept updating me on everything. And so it said the Panama Canal land zone will cease to exist on 1 October 1979. European format and God's acres don't cease to exist. So when he told me that, I immediately called the team. And you know who our friend is. And I called another person who's known him for about 40 years. And the two of them know each other very well. And we were talking about this, and they decided and called me back and said, look, everything the president's been changing in your book series for the sake of America, mention one of those. Tell him the name of the book, and he gave back 2,300 of the stolen of 3,000 acres from the Okmulgee in Macon, Georgia. This is back, you guys, like a couple centuries ago. And so what happened is when that happened, they ruined everything for those people. President Trump wrote the bill for that, and then he signed the bill for that. He wrote it in 2018 in February, and he signed it in March of 2019. Guys, he has done so much from the information I've given him. It blows me away. And so they said, just give him an example like that. Make sure that you tell him that we told you to insert this and what you found, and remind him about the map cover, remind him about the 4,000 plus acres, and then to tell him no treaties are found, no real estate transaction is available, and this is what God told me. And President Trump immediately went in and found where that was, how it happened, etc., because it's all illegal. So he went from Tucker's interview in 23 saying 2 treaties and $1, the stupidity of this, because he's quoting my old research, right? Well, now we found out it's even more stupid what they did, because there was no dollar or treaties or anything. They just said the land isn't going to exist anymore. Those acres didn't disappear. So then when
Mhm.
all of this happened, then all of a sudden the president started sending out social media. But because of AI, and I didn't know all of this until the team told me, they said, what you give him, expect a different answer. So then after I told him this, he started communicating with the president of Panama. And the president of Panama came out with a tweet that no more threatening tweets from that President Trump. Every square mile acre is going to belong to Panama, and it's going to belong to Panama forever. And you're going to see all these social media communications from the president and my responses to him in the book. And then he just kept, every 3 days he was sending me another answer. So what he said to the president is that, and when the president said that, our President Trump immediately responded and said, we'll see about that. 1 hour
Mhm.
later, our president sent a huge picture out on social media, and he had the biggest ship in America going through that Panama Canal, the biggest flag from America flying on that ship. And there they are going through the Panama Canal. And at the top, he says, welcome to the United States of America Canal. And then they show him with the, you know how you drive down the streets and there's 2 green signs on the corners as though it's a street? They created
Mhm.
a meme with President Trump confirming it's all America now, and America this way and America this way, and it's all about America, and this is our land. And so they're turning the whole thing around. 3 days later, it's
Yeah.
Christmas. And so then what does the president do when they said, what else do you want to know? And I said, well, I want to know who's handling the security of it, because he had said it was China that was in control of it. So is China the security for the canal? Because they had ports on both sides, because that's the shortest way to get on both sides of the world. And I said, I want to know about security. And I gave him all my other research, and there was a whole bunch. I'm not going to bother you with that. So I gave him all the rest of the research. And I said, with all of this being true, because the father told me all of this, with all of this being true, what I want to know is I think we've been paying for the maintenance the whole time. And we've been lied to in America that was no longer our canal. So what does the president do? He sends out, and you can look this up because it's in the archives for him too. It says Merry Christmas, because 3 days later he said, "Did you guys know that the the Panama Canal is being secured on both sides? Not anything about security with Chinese soldiers. They're there loyally but illegally." And so he's going to be taking care of that. And then instead of saying
Mhm.
maintenance, he came back and he said, and did you know that the repairs, and he put it in quotes, did you know that it's costing us billions of dollars a year, and they're saying we have no voice in all of this. So he's not revealing the same things I'm telling him. He's answering back to not connect me with, you see what I mean? He is so
Mhm.
brilliant about all of this and following through this whole thing. So then it comes up to my birthday in early January, and he gives me all the prices. He said, "Did you know we paid 10 million to buy that land from Panama? Did you know we paid 40 million to France, who was supposed to build it, and they didn't build it, but we still paid them 40 million because they didn't build it? And did you know we paid 375 million? Now, guys, this is in 1903 dollars. We paid
Wow.
375 million to build it, and that's when he told me we lost 38,000 lives. So now I had everything I needed for the book. And the guy said, "Do you have any more questions?" And I said, "Well, there's one thing I need to do." And guys, he's going to do it on May 17 in DC. And that is, I said, we've got to go back to what the pilgrims brought, because Christ brought all truth and Constantine changed it 250 years later. The pilgrims brought all truth to us, built a faith monument, told us about all of this, banned a church structure in America for 500 years, because they knew if they did it for 500 years, all children would be raised in the way they should go, and we would never fall down this slippery slope again. We've had to have learned our lesson. So to me, that's the only message for the president, is that we've got to go back to the truth the pilgrims brought and rededicate this land to America, and rededicate our nation to the Lord. And now he's doing it. And this is the only time a president has ever called the entire nation, in essence, to repentance, prayer, and rededicate your lives and your commitment and covenant to this land and to the Lord. And so, because I said that, 3 days later was Carter's funeral. And I don't know if you can pull up the picture of that, but the Carter funeral, it just was amazing. And I don't know if we didn't pull up the other picture of Panama Canal,
Yeah,
but
to our
we can pull
producer,
both
those
of them.
couple of images. Yeah, pop that up there. There we go.
Do you see what President Trump was saying while I was feeding him the research? To the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly, because you think you guys are in charge, and that is our canal.
Wow.
And then the next
Talk about
picture
the
is
story
just,
behind the
yeah,
story. You just got the story
yeah.
behind the story behind the story. Wow.
And then here
All right,
comes
what's this? Oh,
Melania
there
with
she is.
pilgrim hair, with sitting demure as a pilgrim woman, very flat, simple shoes, and black all the way to the heels. It's just,
Yep.
and that is a
Interesting.
design that was on a lapel of a jacket in 2019 on the runway in fashion. And that she did this and had them design this, and came like, I mean, I called Juan, and we got on Nino right away and did an interview on Nino about this, because I said, I tell you guys, and then the president does this because he's always coding with the dresses. He just came out
Hmm.
with the code on the Zorro dress that I've been telling people about since the inauguration, because he did the move of the Zorro with the sword, and then he went to cut the cake, and all the military guys who were on stage that night said they all kept ducking, because that sword, he didn't realize how long that sword was, and it was going everywhere. So, but she's always coding us. But these emotional times with the father and with this, it just, it gave me such hope that we're actually going to be able to do this. And now I'm watching it all unfold in real time, and it's a very emotional, very emotional.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you. You've really, your cells, the cellular structure of you, I can feel it buzzing. And God bless you for the work you've done. And I know you've taken a lot of hits in life. That story can be found to some extent on your website, hisbest.org. We're going to conclude this broadcast on that note. Special report with Sheila Holm once a month here at JMC Broadcasting and all our distribution channels. You should share the show far and wide. And again, what comes to my mind is an oversimplification of this, but what we just learned is the story behind the story behind the story. And what will the truth
Yeah.
do? It'll set us free. And Sheila, you're doing God's work, and we greatly appreciate that. We look forward to seeing you next month here. Special report with Sheila Holm. You can follow Sheila at hisbest.org and visit many of the platforms, whether it's Jaco or Scott McKay or Nino or Blessed to Teach, where she's getting the word out there. But you can count on this every month right here. Special report with Sheila Holm. Thank you, Sheila. God bless you. And I'll be right back after this message.
Join JMC Broadcasting's monthly Global Defense War Military Panel. JMC hosts an esteemed panel of military experts, including Ricardo Bosi, Tom Lennox, Chuck Sellers, Michael Jaco, Derek Johnson, Brad Wozni, and other military guests. Join us each month, where this panel of esteemed guests analyze the current events across a broad spectrum of topics, addressing the questions and concerns that you have. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. John looks forward to seeing you at the next episode of the Global Defense War Military Panel broadcast, right here on jmcbroadcasting.com.
Well, we can't thank Sheila enough for her tireless efforts in the 1819 books she's published to bring us the truth. So visit Sheila's website, learn more about that, and come back next month. We'll get into point 44 and then point 43 and work it backwards as Sheila has educated us on that. Oh, hey, here's an announcement. Again, Thursday, March 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Derek Johnson will be there to answer your questions for 1 solid hour. When you talk about a photogenic mind and someone who can pull up the PEDS or the executive orders, the law of war manual codes, and tie them to current events to help us make sense of the madness. Boy, this should be a packed house to get your questions answered. I want to thank everyone who joined us just the other day with Michael Jaco in the Patriot Power seat. So Derek Johnson, March 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Come join us. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Portal to learn all about that. There's also the free subscription as well. Well, that's a wrap here. Tune in for we're working on something behind the scenes where I might be uniting Sheila Holm and Ricardo Bosi on the same screen. But there's been some scheduling conflicts. So stay tuned for a potential announcement with that. And again, thanks again to Sheila Holm, hisbest.org. And remember, folks, where we go one, we go all. The dawning of the golden age is upon us, but it's a dangerous time. Stay safe, and may God be with you.